And hello, everybody. It is Tom Chenault. It is the Legacy Leadership Show, special edition, probably the best show we are ever going to do in our life. We are so excited about this. We have got Brad Feld today. Go Google him, because the people in my circles probably don't know who you are, but you are super cool and super accomplished. He went to MIT. He's just done this incredible thing, all kinds of great stuff in the world of just philanthropy and venture capital and all this big stuff. And I've been scared to death of him, but he wrote a book called Give First. And I started looking into what this book was going to be about. And I said, Adrian, we have got to get him. This is us. He is amazing. And Adrian read it, and he's more pumped than me.
I am, for sure. Brad, I've been a fan of yours for many, many years through everything you've done with Techstars and here in the Colorado community. And what's been so cool, and one of the things that I want to ask you about is, I mean, you've got to be one of the most prolific bloggers of anybody, forget venture capital. I mean, you just have been so amazing at putting your thoughts out there and using that as a way to connect to others over many years. But I have felt connected to you for such a long time as a result of that. And the philosophy that has come to be called Give First is something that it has become super dear to our hearts. And so, Brad, welcome to the show, and thanks for being here. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm delighted to be here. It's Monday in Aspen. And as I said on the thing you'll use for an outtake, since we screwed up the audio and the internet's decided didn't want to hear from me, Monday night is grocery shopping night for me, because Amy and I split up things in our world of being a married couple for a long time. And I happen to really like to grocery shop. So after we finish, I'm going to go to the grocery store and wander up and down the aisles and buy all the normal healthy stuff, but also get some subversive things like Swedish fish and Cocoa Puffs and shit you're not supposed to buy anymore, but I like.
Cocoa Puffs. That's been a week or two.
Yeah, no kidding.
I can't believe your stores in Aspen have Cocoa Puffs.
Oh, we got Cocoa Puffs, man. I'm going Cocoa for Cocoa Puffs.
That is awesome. So, Brad, inside of what you've been doing, and all of you, I want you to go just Google him and go listen to Seth Godin interview him. Go listen to Tim Ferriss interview him, because what he's done is lived his life giving first without agenda. And I have this whole story about myself that I'm that way. But after I read his book, I realized I've got because I always have kind of like this underlying expectation. But then I thought about my experience with you over all these years. I asked you to come on the radio on a show that I did for stocks called Business for Breakfast. You always said yes. Then he was really, really doing well in college and ended up a CFA at a very young age. And I wanted him to have a rock star job. And you gave me advice on that with nothing in return. And then Rick Manelius, who's now a Techstar coach, what do you call him? Mentor. Rick Manelius was coming on board of a company we had. And, I called you and you said, sure, I'll be happy to advise you on what to do about hiring him and helping with his comp package. Never once in all those conversations, as I think back on it today, did you ever say, what's in it for me? And I just can't. I wish I would have noticed that, but I'm too arrogant. But you are amazing, man. And thank you.
I'm going to make that clip and send it to my mother.
Speaking of your dad, my doctor, your dad is my
dad's a doctor. Yeah.
And my good friend Clint Flanagan, who is an unbelievable guy here in town. You always need to look at your doctor. And if they look like they're going to die, you probably don't want to listen to them.
Different doctor. Yeah.
Oh, Clint Flanagan looks like a Solaflex model, and I love the guy. So I'm not hitting on you, Clint, if you watch this, but yeah. So talk to us about this book is amazing. Talk about it.
Well, this is my 9th book. So I've written a bunch of books. Hopefully at this point, I've kind of got a clue how to do it. Let the reader be the judge of that. And I've been sort of playing around with the idea around this book for quite some time. And the title, I think, describes the two concepts that I've tried to weave together. The main title is Give First, and then the subtitle is The Power of Mentorship. So I've taken these two ideas that are very foundational to me and sort of how I've operated for, I'm about to turn 60, so almost 40 years. I didn't realize it for the first 10 or 20, right, as I was figuring out what I was doing as a founder and entrepreneur and then eventually investor. But sort of the style and approach of it gets embodied in this philosophy that I label Give First. And it's a philosophy, not a religion. It's not a set of rules. It's completely optional. It's not something that makes you better or worse than somebody else. It's not something you have to do with 100% of your energy. I make lots of mistakes. And of course, as somebody who's founded a bunch of companies and invested in a bunch of companies, a lot of the things I do fail. But it's a philosophy about how to approach systems and people. And I'll get back to that in a sec. The second concept is something that we really learned from Techstars, which is how to be an effective mentor. So when we started Techstars in 2006, mentor as a language or as a word wasn't really used much in entrepreneurship. Occasionally it would pop up here and there, especially in a big company context. But we really, from the very beginning, tried to incorporate this notion of mentorship into how Techstars worked. And then by about 2010, David Cohen sat down, David's the CEO of Techstars, and wrote something called the Techstars Mentor Manifesto. And it's just 18 bullet points. He didn't spend a lot of time, making them perfect or anything like that. Grammarly, when I was working on this book, I have Grammarly running in the background, fixing all my little, typos and stuff. And it sticks red lines underneath the grammar of the Techstars Mentor Manifesto endlessly. But they were kind of concepts that David and I and a few others had observed made for effective mentorship compared to lots of things that people do that's mentorship that's not effective. So I've taken these two ideas and I've woven them together in a book that's not a memoir. I didn't want to write a memoir, but I tell lots of stories from my own experience, which is a key part of mentorship, is not telling somebody the answer, but giving them examples from one's own experience about the situation. I'll end this with just defining Give First for somebody who says, oh, sounds nice, but tell me, what is this Give First thing? So remember, it's a philosophy. You're not going to achieve salvation like you would potentially by following a bunch of rules in religion, or in some religious traditions, you get to follow the rules and you die and you get reincarnated and you get to follow the rules again and then you die and you get reincarnated. It's not that. There's no rules here. It's just a set of ideas. And the sort of container of the philosophy is the notion as follows. Give First is being willing to put energy into a system without knowing what you're going to get back. It's not altruism. You expect to get something back. You just don't know from whom or when, over what time period, in what consideration, and what magnitude. So, you're just willing to put energy into stuff. And sometimes you get things back directly from that system or those people, but sometimes it's from lots of other things. And I would say at some point, where that came from is at some point as I was working on the book Startup Communities, which I came out with in 2012, that phrase didn't exist before 2012. People would call them innovation clusters or entrepreneurial ecosystems, things that weren't that accessible to founders.
Sure.
And I really wanted to come out with this idea of a community that had one goal. And the one goal was to help founders be successful. That was it. And that ended up being a startup community. And in that book, I had a short section called Give Before You Get. It was one paragraph. And it basically just described this idea, which really had, if you think about it in the context of startup communities, I was trying to motivate people to put energy into their startup community without knowing what they were going to get back from it.
Wow. Yeah.
It wasn't altruism. They'd get something back. They just didn't know where that something was going to come from or what it was going to look like. And if you get enough people putting that energy into the startup community, you build a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
And what evolved from that over time after I wrote that, I fortunately got to know a guy named Adam Grant who came out with a fantastic book called Give and Take. That book came out a couple of months later. We didn't know each other. And when I read his book, I'm like, holy smokes, like this is a thing.
Yeah.
And that then I started thinking about it more generally, more as a concept about a philosophy of how I was approaching things.
Yeah.
And then that's the essence of it.
Go.
That was a lot of words too. I see.
It was great. We both
oh.
were chomping at the bit. I thought I had named next question, so here I am.
Go for it.
So we live in Longmont, Colorado, just on the doorstep of Boulder, Colorado. Boulder was kind of ground zero for a lot of these ideas and the kind of the manifestation of this community that led to the writing of startup communities and the formation of a lot of these ideas for you. And one of the questions that I have is maybe how you saw this manifest for founders who were earlier in their startup journey, right? Like, I think it's easy for me to see, Brad, he's so accomplished. He's at this place, or such and such founder, they're on their Series C now, they've made it. But part of the magic was that this happened not just for those people who have ostensibly made it, but it was really the whole ecosystem, wherever people were in the journey, that bought into this. What did that look like for some people who were earlier on in their entrepreneurship journey to kind of get it and start to contribute into this positive ecosystem?
Let me use an example.
Yeah.
From very early on when I started thinking about this more rigorously, right? So this is probably again 2011-ish, and the example will underscore the following statement for someone earlier in their career. First of all, give first can be selfish.
Yeah.
The things you're putting into the system can be things that you think will benefit you. Remember, it's not altruistic. So that's one point. The second is, this is a philosophy. This is not rules to live by.
Sure.
It's not, like 100% of your energy. It's 5% or 10% or 20% of your energy. It's some part of it. So
Sure.
Combining these two concepts, a founder who I would categorize him as a skeptical person. Early on, as I'm talking about startup communities and give before you get, and the book isn't out yet. It's still, I'm like working on the ideas and talking to people and playing around with different things. Person basically comes up to me and says, I don't get this, Brad. This sounds like bullshit to me. Like, why would I do this? I'm really busy. I got a startup. I'm working 80 hours a week. I've got no money. I'm, fighting with investors, trying to get more money. I've got employees. I'm trying to find people. I got to get customers. Like, my life is hard. I don't know what you're talking about. I said, what's one of your big problems? Just give me one. I don't want five. Just quick, off the top of your head, what's one of your biggest problems? And he said, well, our company's a mobile software company. So it must have been around 2009, 2010. The Apple phone was out. Apps were starting to be a thing with the iPhone. Maybe it was iPhone 3 by now. And he says, I can't find mobile developers. Like, there aren't any. And I'm dying because, I need mobile developers. And I've got 3 good people or whatever, but I need a lot more. That's my biggest problem. I said, all right, I have a suggestion for you. I'm not aware of an iPhone developer meetup, iOS developer meetup in Boulder, Denver. Why don't you start a meetup for iOS developers? I think at the time we called them iPhone developers. Have it once a month at your office. All you need to do is serve pizza and drinks. And just get a group of people together for 90 minutes, 2 hours. It's classic meetup style, no agenda in advance. People bring their agenda to the meeting. You figure out what you do. You can have one thing. You can have speakers, whatever. Figure it out. You make it up. There's no formal way to do it. And let's talk in 6 months. He's like, all right, that sounds kind of interesting. I'll at least do that once and just see. And we got together about 6 months later, and I said, for some other reason, I said, hey, how did that meetup thing go? He goes, unbelievable. I have all the people doing iPhone applications in the Front Range in my office once a month. I now know them all. I don't need to hire anybody because I've hired as many people as I need. And I'm not worried. I invite those people to come because they learn, and it's at our office, so we feel like we're the hosts, and it's unreal. And he kind of, I had the problem a little. Remember what started that thing? He says, yeah, that was your startup community thing. I totally get it. I totally get how I'm putting energy into this thing, and I see how it's benefiting me. And again, first time founder, have no resources, da. So that's an example. I could give 100 examples like that. And the key is on this thread for a young founder is there are many things that when you're starting your career or starting your first company or early on your journey that you can contribute back in ways that help you, but you're not making a contract. And by the way, they might not work. It's like a bunch of things in your startup. They're experiments. They might fail. Or you might try it and nobody shows up. Or, you might do it and you realize, this doesn't actually really solve this problem. But then something else happens that helps you in a different way where you're like, oh, I didn't see that coming. So, coming in with this idea that you're putting energy in, whether it's startup community or any relationship or any person, but without having to define transactionally what you're going to get back is a powerful way to spend a portion of your energy.
Love that. I love that. You want to go?
No, go ahead.
Right. So I think that makes a ton of sense. And I think one of the things that for any entrepreneur, right? And our audience is a whole range of entrepreneurs from startup kind of people to people who are in network marketing and more sort of solopreneur kind of things. But, I think the hallmark of a successful entrepreneur is somebody who is resourceful and who figures out how to make things happen without having the playbook, without having all the resources in the world and whatever. And what I love about the story you just shared is it's like, this is maybe a new kind of like cheat code or a new different way to think about how to get more of what you want, but in a way that actually increases the size of the pie or the amount of goodness out there in the world for everybody involved, right?
Well, I think that's a really important construct, which is this idea of a positive sum game. So I'll often talk about sort of three concepts. It came from startup communities, but it broadly applies to how I've lived my life, especially my business life, but in general. One is I don't engage a priori transactionally, right? So if you think about engaging transactionally versus non-transactionally, transactional is, hey, Adrian and Tom, I'll come on the Legacy Leadership podcast. Tell me what I'm going to get out of it. How many users do you have? How many listeners? When are you going to put it up? Are you going to do this for me? Da.
Sure.
It's very different than just saying sure.
Yeah.
That's a non-transactional approach. Transactional approach, we see it in lots of things. And by the way, it's important in business. I don't live my whole life non-transactionally. One of my favorite throwaway lines right now around Give First is, the person that comes up to me and says, hey, you're that Give First investor guy. Why don't you give me $5 million? and when I have my exit, I'll give you back what I think, you should get. It's like, no, that's not how investing works. I invest in your company. I'm now a part owner of your company with you. We're partners. I'm a shareholder in the business. Like, that's a transactional component. So it's not, again, transactional versus non-transactional is not uniform, but it's a way of engaging. Second is this notion of positive sum. If you think about zero-sum games or win-lose games where there's a clear winner and there's a clear loser, that's a lot of life. I mean, individual sporting events are win-lose.
Yep.
However, an arc of that doesn't have to be. So somebody challenged me. This was another one that came up recently. He says, well, sports is zero sum. There is no such thing in sports as a positive sum game. But I said, that's bullshit. I'm a huge tennis fan. If you didn't watch it, I'll send you the YouTube of the wonderful event they had for Rafael Nadal at Roland Garros this year, where they basically honored him. And in the midst of honoring him, he had Nadal came out surprised to him was Federer, Djokovic, and Andy Murray. Now they're all friends, but Nadal and Federer have a special relationship and they competed, incredibly intensely over a very long career. But they're extremely good friends, and they both loved competing with each other, regardless of who won. And they both said in different ways that the other made them a better player, and that the fact that the two of them had such a rivalry made tennis a better sport. And Djokovic is kind of a third wheel in this. He's good friends with them too, but he was never like as super close as the two of them were.
Sure.
But just that dynamic, that's a positive sum game for the sport of tennis.
Yeah.
Right? For the community or the ecosystem that is tennis versus this individual focus on, well, who got more wins?
Yeah.
And then the last is, of course, what I just described, which is a multi-turn game. It's not a single turn game. You don't play once, you play over and over and over again. So if you apply those things to business and to your question, right? My approach to business is non-transactional entry point with most people, positive sum, not fluffy duffy, win-win vague stuff, but where like it benefits both of us. And of course there are situations where I get better and somebody else gets worse or vice versa. And by the way, in business, especially entrepreneurship, there's a ton of failure.
Sure.
So just because we both have a thing we involved in that might be positive sum, the outcome might be a failure. That's part of the way it goes. And then the last is multi-turn. I've now been doing this 40 years. I mean, some of the best relationships I have are ones that go back 40 years. And then the level of emotional intimacy. I mean, Tom, you said at the beginning, we haven't spent a lot of time in person, maybe once or twice. We've spent a handful of times remotely and plenty of texts and emails over the years. And I mean, but the level of emotional intimacy that exists just as a function of the way we've interacted with each other over that period of time is really powerful. It's a multi-turn game. I'm not trying to say, well, did I get something out of this one time with Tom? Was that worth it to me? Hey, did Brad disappoint me this one time when he did a thing that I thought was stupid or didn't show up for this thing that he said he was going to be able to do because, we didn't do whatever? No, that shit happens.
And we're all connected. You guys, we are all his right-hand woman, Christy DeLozier, she just had a baby, by the way. Did you know that?
Uh-uh.
Yeah, she had a kid. That lady she worked at Techstars, Christy something.
Yeah.
And she lives right across the street from me now. You are everywhere in my life. I just want you to know that. And
we have you surrounded.
Yes, you do. But for those of you that are thinking this is like stock stuff, no, it's not. It's not startup stuff. I'm going to read you a couple of pieces of the manifesto so you understand this is about being a better human being that happens to be an entrepreneur. And it's an important part of it. Be authentic. Practice what you preach. Be direct. Tell the truth, however hard. And that is the most important. Tell the truth as fast as you can. Listen to. I am telling you, this book, I want you to buy it right now. I want you to eat this book. And I want you to give away a few copies because it is absolutely magic, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
So here's how this all went down. I knew he wrote a new book, but somehow I came across something where he was coming to town and he was doing little 15-minute slots. And I thought, where's he doing this? So I looked because I'm a fan and a half. And it turns out it was in Longmont. And it turns out it is exactly a quarter of a mile from his house. Think of how close that is, a quarter of a mile. Right there at 3rd and Main in Longmont. And his friend, Greeley Sachs, who's the wife of one of his partners, has been building up and renovating all these historic buildings on Main Street that needed it. And it is beautiful. And they opened up this place called the Composition Shop, which is this gorgeous bookstore that is incredible. And he was going to help her promote that. So they were down there. But then I started thinking about how many times you've been down in town. And another guy who has a heart the size of a basketball that I forgot about, I go to listen to him speak and he's sobbing from the front of the room. Jerry Kalana.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of your mentors, right?
Jerry is more than a mentor. Jerry and I would say, are soulmates.
Yeah.
So Jerry, for people who don't know him, Jerry and I met in the 1990s. He was a venture capitalist and partners with a guy named Fred Wilson, also a very successful VC.
Huge.
And so in the 90s, when I started investing, they were starting to invest. Fred had been a VC for a while. Jerry had kind of been investing about the same length of time that I'd been an angel investor. And the three of us met and became very, very good friends. Jerry and Fred, of course, business partners for a number of years. But then after the internet bubble, Jerry, who talks very openly about his own struggles with depression, decided he was done with VC, was sick of it. So he sort of disappeared for a couple of years and reappeared as a coach, a CEO coach. And he and I had spent a bunch of time together, just the two of us, sort of in that intervening time, a couple of times. He still was living in New York. And he decided to move to Boulder. He was involved in Shambhala, and he was also involved in Naropa. And he had become a Buddhist. And today, Jerry, I think, is probably, the best, if not one of the best CEO coaches in the world. He lives in Longmont. He ended up buying a house a mile away from our house when Amy and I lived in Longmont. We lived in Longmont from 2013 to 2023. And the two of us have just spent an enormous amount of time together as friends. But I talk about us as soulmates because one of the things that is magical about mentorship is when the mentor-mentee relationship becomes a peer relationship.
Yeah.
That's the magic trick of the whole thing. And you don't have to be the same age. You don't have to be the same accomplishment or anything. Every mentor can learn from the person who is the mentee, just like the mentee can learn from the mentor. And some of the power is when that relationship goes from a one-up, one-down relationship, mentor-mentee, to a peer relationship. Jerry and my relationship was a peer relationship from almost the beginning. Just in terms of how we engaged with each other. And you could say, well, that sounds like a business friendship and then a personal friendship. And sure, of course. But the number of things that he showed up for me in critical moments for, or I showed up for him in critical moments for, especially when the other person didn't ask or there was no clear benefit, resulted in a relationship that had this sort of learning dynamic between the two of us around so many things having to do with entrepreneurship, mental health, living a good life, navigating through the issues that each of us faced. And then as time has passed and Jerry and his wife, Allie, have become, real fixtures in Longmont, and in Colorado, where I was for 30 years, and I think Jerry's now been in Colorado for 15 to 20 years. It's pretty awesome, right? To have that kind of a relationship and the separate but together. He has his own sort of work life. I have my own work life. Sometimes they intersect with each other, but the principles and the things we learn from each other are so powerful. If you happen to go to Composition Shop, and I keep Greeley stocked with Give First books, so I'm pretty confident that she has them if you feel like going there.
That's we picked up our copy.
support your local bookseller instead of Amazon, and please tell Greeley hi if you happen to see her or any of the staff there. Jerry wrote a book. He's written 2 books now, but his first book was called Reboot: The Art of Leadership in Growing Up. And it's a magnificent, really awesome book. I think you could probably buy it at Composition Shop as well. And there's a section in that book that Jerry talks about that really was important to me, a conversation he and I had that'll just sort of be a bow on this conversation. We're sitting in my backyard. It was a big backyard, 40 acres, off St. Vrain one day, just beautiful day. And I was I don't remember what was going on. I was a little tired from something, probably a little grouchy from whatever was going on at work. And he was very calm. And it was just one of those hangout in the late afternoon, contemplative, let's just be together. And I said to him, I was probably 52 or 53 at the time. So it was, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And I said to him, Jerry, I am done striving. And I didn't really think about it in advance. I just said the word just sort of popped out of my mouth, and we beat that around for a little while. And he basically at the end said some version of "Welcome to being an elder." He's a couple of years older than me. But what it really meant was not that I wasn't going to accomplish anything for the rest of my life, not that I wasn't going to keep trying to do stuff, but I didn't have ego attachment to the next and the next and the more and the more. Like I was just so tired of that ethos. And it was in a period of time. It was pre-COVID. It was a period of time when sort of entrepreneurial activity was becoming popular again. And my own experience with investing in companies and founding companies is most things fail, and it's just really hard. And it takes just incredible effort and incredible grit. There is no rock star investor thing. The hero of the story is the founders and the founders of the companies. And I was getting tired of this idea of the person in the investor seat being the hero of the story somehow. There was something about the narrative that was making me tired even then, right? Whatever it was, 2016, 2017. And this idea that Jerry wrapped a bunch of stuff around it in the book that was so fascinating is when I talk about being soulmates, those are the kind of conversations that you can have. They're not judgmental. They're not, I'm trying to prove something. I'm trying to be good. I'm trying to be bad. I'm trying to show. It's just like, here's what I'm feeling. And we all have friends and intimates that we can do that with. But the ability to do that broadly writ across a long landscape, I think, is hard. And personally, I think it's been very powerful to try to embody a philosophy that encourages that. And Jerry is one of those people who has done that in spades.
That's amazing. And we feel the same way. We interviewed him a couple of times and we love him. And another thing I just remembered that was defining that you were responsible for was Defy Ventures. And he and I went down to Colorado State.
Oh, that's awesome.
And did that whole crazy deal with all those inmates down there that were never going to get out of jail. In order to become better human beings, you put that together with that Cat Hoke lady, and it changed our life, didn't it?
It really did.
Yeah, Defy's pretty amazing, and it continues on. It's called Breakthrough now, and
yeah,
it's got a good organization around it in Colorado, and has been really impactful. I did that program twice, I think, maybe at least twice. I don't think it was 3 times, but where you spend a day in prison with a group of about 50 people who are incarcerated and about 50 people who play a mentor-like role, but you're full participant in it. And it is around sort of the idea of taking control of your life, but it's not really about taking control of your life as an entrepreneur. It's about taking control of your life and understanding and relating to people who are in a very different position than you, people who are incarcerated, who are trying to navigate their own way through where after some situation that landed them in prison, which obviously was significant and sort of what the trauma that led up to whatever happened that caused that to be. But to the perspective of saying, it is not a better or worse thing in this world. I am not better than you. You are not worse than me. We're just humans. And, we all make mistakes. And, I had a friend who had a 20-year-old, his 20-year-old son died suddenly. I was probably in my 30s. And this friend said to me, Brad, life is a fatal disease. And he wasn't saying it from a moment of pain. He was saying it from a moment of sort of acceptance.
Yeah.
The chemistry line, I've now learned there was a whole bunch of cliches for this. Life is a process of continual oxidation. That's the chemistry one. But this notion that we're just humans and shit's hard and bad things happen. And, whether you're in business, you recognize bad things happen because a business is a series of experiments, many of which fail, and you eventually land on a couple of experiments that work, and when they work you do more of them, and the ones that fail you learn from them and try again. Or you think about relationships where no matter how good a person you are, no matter how hard you try, you're going to have some relationships that break. You're going to hurt somebody, or somebody's going to hurt you, and you're going to decide you don't want anything to do with that person anymore. And, we all have our own, every single person I've ever met, including me, has plenty of their own shit.
Yep.
And, part of at least for me, part of the fun of this experience called life has been trying to work through some of that shit and get rid of it and be better in the context of a more satisfying life, a more effective person, a better friend, a better partner. And knowing even with that, part of it is failing at a bunch of that stuff too.
So you talked in your book about your 4 favorite things: Amy, running, reading, and writing. And I just think that is the most beautiful thing. And I spent more time on this show than I probably have on any show I've ever done, just because I had interviewed you in my brain wrong. And I just was committed to undoing that and figuring this out. And what I want everybody to get is we're just what he just said. We're all just human beings. And the real defining part of everything, homeless. I mean, I'm a recovering alcoholic, 37 years of daily AA. So my friends are really, really, they go across the spectrum. But what I have found is every one of them are so lovable. And I know I want them to be in a different spot, but I had to realize they are right where they're supposed to be. And I can't interrupt that. I can just support it and not judge it. And what I love about you, and I finally figured out, is that's the way you roll. And when you get sick of it, you kind of hibernate, which is pretty cool. You came out of hibernation for the last 6 months or so, but you've stated when you turn 60, you're going back in the cave to go figure it out again, right?
Yeah, well, I'm going to turn into a pumpkin at midnight on Halloween. So I decided I'd mix some metaphors around. But, I turned 60 on December 1st, but I'm back in hibernation then. I hibernated for about 2 years. And I'm really glad I did. I didn't make a pronouncement about it. I didn't put that gratuitous blog post or LinkedIn that says, "Oh, I'm going to stop doing all my public things now for a while." I just stopped.
Yeah.
And I needed to stop. I was tired. I was kind of getting cranky. I was unhappy with some things. I wasn't enjoying how I was spending a bunch of my time. I needed a big reset. In some different ways. And I continued to work and do my work. I just got rid of a segment of my life, which was this public facing activity, whether it was writing and blogging or social media or showing up at events or whatever.
Sure.
I knew some fundamental things, and I had figured out some other fundamental things about myself. An example would be, I'm tired of the introvert extrovert language because I think we all have some of both in us. But I came up with a way to describe it for me, which is, for me, things that drain me of energy include all the public facing stuff, being with people, doing stuff like this. This is fun, but it drains me of energy.
Sure it does.
And what builds back my tank is being alone or being with Amy, or going for a long run or reading. There's a set of things. And so what I had chronically done over a long period of time, and I talk about it very openly around my own struggles with depression, is I would, because I'd be in this mode that I define as default yes, where I kind of say yes to everything, I just drain myself. I just physiologically exhaust myself. And that would often trigger a depressive episode. And I could function, I could do my work, but I wasn't happy. I wasn't having fun. There wasn't any joy in the stuff I was doing. So I try to navigate through those things are important. And I tried to weave some of that in this book. I mean, one of the things that was harder to write just because I had to focus in a different way on it. It wasn't as natural. Wasn't harder because it was emotionally harder. It was just I wanted to get it in a way that was really useful to people. Is the third part of this book, which is about challenges of Give First or problems with Give First, because every philosophy has issues.
Right.
And what I didn't want to do is write a book that says, here's a bunch of happy stuff and here's a bunch of good things. And choose what you want. They're not rules. Do whatever you want. Hopefully they'll help you and they'll help you be better. and then leave out and here's the cost.
Yeah.
And here's kind of some of the things that can really be hurtful to one in the context of it. The other thing that was useful about this time period, especially this idea of a conscious, for me, hibernation. And by the way, I don't know if when I turn 60 I'll ever unhibernate again. I enjoyed that modality. I am enjoying the last couple of months. I have enjoyed being out and about, but like physiologically, I feel different. I do feel the fatigue. I do feel the draining. I do feel I'd like some just space for other stuff. What I got to was this line you started with, Tom, was I realized I really only love doing 4 things. I like doing a lot of things, but there's only 4 things I really love. And it's things, not people, because I think when you talk about loving people, it's a harder thing. I absolutely love my parents. Do I love spending as much time with my parents as I spend with Amy? No, absolutely not. My parents would acknowledge that. They probably would love to spend more time or like to spend more time with me than I spend with them. But I do love them, and we do, so I tried to separate it. And when I got to these 4 things, it turns out as humans, we say so quickly that we love to do something. But so much of what at least for me, what I would say, oh yeah, I'd love to do that. I'd be like, I don't want to do that. Or my future self, when my current self would catch up with my future self committed to a thing. Oh yeah, that'll be really fun and exciting. And then my current self gets it, like, what the fuck am I doing that? I don't want to do that. So I was able to look at this time period and say, I really do only love doing these 4 things. And they're pretty broad. Spending time with Amy covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
Writing actually covers a lot of ground. This is my 9th nonfiction book. It might be my last, but I love writing. So I'm going to write some fiction and play around with it. I wrote software commercially until 1992. And I was running my company, and I wouldn't know what a CEO was. I was president. I didn't have time to write software anymore. So that was when my coding career ended. I've started writing software again, and I love writing software. It's just like the losing myself for, a full day on a Saturday, in working on something is a unique experience that I used to do every day when I was in my mid-20s.
Yeah.
So, understanding those things and weaving them in where you can separate doesn't mean that I won't do anything that I don't love. But conflating something that you get deep joy from versus, all right, this is cool. By the way, I like going to the grocery store. I don't love going to the grocery store. If someone did that instead, it would be fine. But in my marriage, I'm happy to be the one doing it.
And I know it's about time for you to go to the grocery store too. One of the things I loved this interview, and I loved it for 2 reasons. One is I think everyone listening, you got enough of a taste of what this book is about to really want to go and read it. And one of my least favorite things is when you listen to somebody talk about their book on a podcast, and then you go, oh, great, I'm going to go buy the book. And you learn nothing else from the book because you heard the entire book report. And this was not that. You shared so many really great stories that go beyond the book, and we took some.
Well, we made a commitment that we wanted that to be this because
you did a good job, because I have done a few podcasts that when I finished, I'm like, that was a book report.
Yeah.
And much more fun to have this kind of a conversation.
And I have to tell you, I just dawned on me, you're responsible for another horrible part of my life and great part of my life was when you invested in Full Contact, and I went and got that. And it was the complete answer to my problems, which was a digital book, but it didn't do some things. So he and I started a company called Contact Mapping, which was just a little iteration of Full Contact, where we really focused on remembering and reminding people to remember what to just telling people what we knew about him. And it turned into a massive success, but it about bankrupted me till he finally sold that. But I am telling you, you are everywhere in my life, and we love you for that. And I'm so happy we got there from here. And all of you have lived through this whole show. Be sure to stick around for the end, because we're going to put up the beginning of the show that we messed up because everything was modulating wrong. But Brad was so authentic on camera that you want to watch that too. Like 2 minutes. And he'll finally call us on the phone and offer us all kinds of money to pull it down. But that will be awesome.
No, the world needs to see more silly things.
And I want to say one more thing. You meet a lot of things and a lot of people, not things, you can't meet things, but your wife is doing such big stuff for women. You know about a lot of stuff. Don't be afraid to call us and let us do a show on any cause that you're passionate about, because we are giant Brad Feld fans as a human being, and we'll help you all we can. Oh, wow. That was cool. Look what he just did.
I didn't even know you could make fireworks in StreamYard, but now I do.
That was so cool. All right.
Oh, you can do it twice in a row. Look at that.
There you go. Brad, thank you so much. What a great conversation. Make sure you go to feld.com and get a copy of Give First. And Brad, we just can't thank you enough.
Wait a minute. Forgot. So you get a choice for your running. This is a tremendous hoodie that says "Love Like Crazy, Then Love More." This one says, same thing. One of them says "Fire Your Brain, Hire Your Heart," or we will send you one of these BLTS shirts that I told you about for just being our guest. So don't be afraid to tell us which one. Michelle will reach out to your sister.
I need a pink hoodie.
You got it, baby. It's coming.
I need an extra large pink hoodie to replace my very tattered green hoodie. So I can.
Okay, we'll give you some choices of what. Yeah, that thing looks like shit. We will give you a cool one. We promise. And thank you so much. We love you, Brad Feld. Have a great day.
Thanks, buddy.